Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our next installment of Beyond Bound, professional development for coaches and ADs, put together by ADs and coaches. It's December 1st. Welcome officially to the Christmas season for those of you out there joining us. Thanks for joining us out there to the other Bound directors. Excited to share with you guys today and then have you guys share your thoughts on this as well. So let's get started. Just a reminder of what this series is all about. I said we're just a group of ADs who like to sit around and talk shop. We like to talk about professional development. We like to talk about the experiences we had as ADs and what we learned from those experiences. And now we're trying to take all those experiences and pass them on and just have discussions about topics that meant a lot to us or that we knew mattered within our athletic programs in the schools that we worked with. So we will take those topics on and just have discussions and share those with coaches and ADs in quick hitting short segments. We know how busy you are, and so we want to just try to give you a quick 15-minute hit on a topic that might get your mind spinning on, hey, how can I use this to make my program better? How can I use this to better lead my coaches? And so that's what this whole thing is all about. So thanks for joining us, and we hope you pick up at least one thing today from this Beyond Bound session that makes a difference in your programs. Since this is my first one that I'm presenting on, just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Aaron Stecker. Live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Worked at Cedar Rapids Kennedy for 29 years in education. I was an AD for 16 years. Within that 29-year career, I was a football coach for 13 years, track and field coach on both the boys and girls side for 11 years. Was blessed to get asked to serve in a leadership capacity within the Iowa High School Athletic Directors Association, and had a great run at that radically changed my trajectory as an AD, my experience as an AD. So for those of you listening out there, for you ADs out there, if you aren't engaged at your state level, find a way to get engaged. It'll change your life. It'll change your journey. That's my little plug for that as well. So topic of the day today, we're going to talk about horizontal accountability today. You could probably substitute horizontal leadership in there for that as well, but I love the word accountability. I think it carries more weight with it. We're going to kind of stick to just the educational athletics perspective on this, but really you can apply this to any system out there. But when we talk about the skill set of horizontal accountability, I'm going to start by emphasizing the fact that it's a skill set. And you'll hear us talk about that a lot. I think it's something I spend a lot of time talking about. This is not a characteristic of a team or an organization. This is not a trait of a team. If it's a characteristic or a trait, there's this assumption that comes with that type of terminology that's inherent, or it is something you're born with. You either have it or you don't, and you can't learn it. And it's not true. It's a skill set that can be intentionally developed over time within a system. So I just challenge you with anything. When you talk about the things that make programs great, talk about them in terms of skill sets, because they can be for whatever level you're at, they can always be improved and bettered. It's not a habit or don't mindset. So anyway, we're going to focus on horizontal accountability today. We're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about why it's important, why it can raise the bar within your program. We're going to talk about what it might look like when you see it, and maybe how you can get started. Here's one of the things. It's certainly not the only component to successful programs, but I would say that programs over the years I've seen that are more maybe those reload programs instead of rebuild programs. They're successful year in, year out. They're competitive no matter what, everything that you think, oh, they just graduated 3 or 4 seniors, this will be a down year for them. And next thing you know, they're just sneaky good again. You can't figure out why, and they reload it. I think programs that have accountability at the player level, where the players are building one another up and responsible, or have a responsibility to do that, are the types of programs that rebuild and not reload. All right, let's jump into it here. So what is it, or what's maybe the difference between vertical accountability and horizontal accountability? That vertical accountability is a top-down leadership style, where the head coach or the AD is the one responsible for the vision, the mission, the energy, the attitude every single day, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what the culture of the program is going to be. Now, it might be the head coach and a couple of trusted assistant coaches, but it's a small group that's setting the tone for the program. And then it's trickled down. And the further you get from that top level, from the head coach to the AD level, the further you get. Think about if you're an AD and you're running your athletic program, or you are the end-all be-all in the program as an AD, and you're going to share that information with your head coaches, and they're going to share that with the assistant coaches, and assistant coaches carry that information through, or that culture through to the players. Well, now the players are 4 levels removed from the energy and the passion where that came from, and have very little say in what the program looks like. So that's, again, vertical leadership has its place, and there's times that it's just what you have to do to get things done. And I think some of the guys will talk about some of those things down the road. But I think the more you can shift away from that into this style, which is horizontal accountability, where you flatten out that pyramid. There are less layers, and there's a shared responsibility, a collective responsibility to what we're about, what the culture is going to be, who we are, and what we want to become. And when you're accountable to one another, when you get to a point where your players start looking around the locker room or down the bench and say, look, man, I'm accountable to you to be my best today, because if I'm not my best, you can't be your best, and I'm not going to let you down. That's what we're talking about here. When you get to the point where I'm bringing my best because I've got a role to play and I'm not letting the other guys or gals on this team down. That's what we're talking about when it's their vision and their passion. That's what horizontal accountability is all about. Some differences you might see in a vertical accountability system versus a horizontal accountability system. In that vertical accountability system, the energy has to come from the top. The head coach or the AD is responsible for the energy, and they have to constantly attend to it and constantly be responsible for it. It is the perspectives, experiences, values, and motivators of that leader only. If they're the one responsible for it and passing it down through the system, then it's only their vision, it's only their values, it's only their experiences. Now let's just start to think about the difference of that is it's a collective. It's the collective experiences, the collective perspectives, the collective values and motivators. Think about, you get to a point with a team, rather than it all being the head coach, the AD, and their experience, but now it's your point guard and why they love basketball, why they want to be a point guard, what do they want out of this season, and what have their past experiences been that have gotten them to this point. When that now matters in the culture of the team, and every player has that same feeling on the team, now you start to build something, that collective responsibility, and you got all these values and experiences coming in that make you richer, deeper, more connected as a team. I think if you look at when it's effective, if it's vertical accountability, a vertical accountability system, man, the head coach, the AD has to be in the room for it to be effective, because they're the ones responsible for it. When your players or your assistant coaches and head coaches have more responsibility in your culture, it's most effective when you're not there, because they're the ones who are going to make sure it perpetuates forward. I think if it's a vertical top-down system, it's very easily undercut in times of adversity, because that's the person you can blame. The coach, you can blame the AD. It's their fault we're not performing well. When you have a shared responsibility, you can't start pointing the fingers at everybody else, because you got to start with yourself first. How do I have to get better to make this situation go in our favor? As an AD, when I walked into a gym or walked onto the field, walked out to a practice, or I watched a team compete, here's just a few of the things I would see in teams that I felt were leaning more towards that horizontal accountability, player accountability system versus a top-down system. I saw higher energy in practices. I saw players pushing one another in practice. I saw players feeling a sense of responsibility that I've got to bring my best every day to push our team to be the best we can be. I also saw fewer roller coaster moments. When adversity struck, I didn't see our teams with the really high highs and the really low lows. I saw more of that poised, controlled, always moving forward type of team. I saw more problem solving, more creativity. The players weren't looking to the bench to have coaches solve problems in the middle of a game. You look out there, the coach is trying to talk there. Sometimes I see my coaches actually trying to holler out there, get the kids' attention. The kids are too busy talking about how they're going to fix it or how they're going to adjust to what's being done so that they can be more successful than they're being right now, which is a great place to be. If we really believe what we believe about educational athletics, isn't that what we're trying to get to anyway? We're trying to build innovators, creative problem solvers, and use this as a platform to build that in them. So when they go take on whatever they're going to take on in the world, that's the way they operate. So when you start to see that, it's a fantastic thing. I saw coaches teaching. I didn't see coaches managing attitude and effort. I saw coaches teaching the game, and they get to get more in depth and teach deeper concepts and teach the game at a deeper level because they're spending less time and energy and effort. And I saw players who maybe weren't the starters accepting their role because they felt accountable to the overall system. And so I saw role playing be more effective, people buying into and engaging in roles rather than complaining about roles. How do you get started on this? And again, we're just scratching the surface on this, and these are just a couple things to maybe think about. If you want to see more of a player accountability mindset in your program, then a coach-led mindset in your program, I think you got to start with your hardest workers. You got to start with it because they're the ones who are probably exhibiting what you want to see in your program. And you start with them, and you work and you start building leadership capacity in your hardest workers in your program. The ones who are bought into what you're trying to do, and they're the ones working hardest every day to make it happen. Now, you're in business if your most talented athletes are also your hardest workers. That makes the start of that journey a whole lot easier. If they're not your hardest workers, and work on getting them that way. Once you start to build on that, another thing you can try is just try team-led practices. Give your kids a chance to plan a practice, execute a practice, reflect on a practice, and see what that process is all about. They'll start to learn all the nuances that go into it, and they actually get practice in being a coach, because you want them to be coaches on the field, coaches on the court. So let them run a practice and see what that feels like. They start to take more ownership if they understand the process of getting better. Last thing I'd say, sometimes coaches be strategic about it, but sometimes just sit back and let them take over, let them figure it out. So don't call that timeout when you want to call that timeout, when things are just falling apart and you're like, oh, I got to call a timeout and get them reset. Give them opportunities to figure it out, because if they figure it out and it works, that builds that accountability, that leadership capacity within them. So just a couple ways to maybe get that started, to think about that as well. Couple quotes here, and then I'm going to turn it over to the guys to share their thoughts that I think apply to this idea of this horizontal leadership, player-led accountability in your programs. That top left corner, Brene Brown, with that, the unity requires accountability. If you want your teams to be connected and tight, man, they got to feel accountable to one another. They got to feel like they've got skin in the game, like they matter in the program. If you want them to respond well to adversity, they've got to feel a connection through accountability. They got to feel a responsibility for the way we respond to an event that happens to our team. I love this one here. The accountability is the glue that bonds commitment to results. If you want your kids to be committed to the type of team you're going to become, the type of program you're going to be, they have to feel like they're accountable to it. If all they feel like is a player and a pawn in the system, and it's the coach's job to set it up, then they've got no accountability. They can't commit to it. Not to the level that takes you to where you really want to get to. Where there's no accountability, there's no responsibility. If I'm not accountable for it, I can blame somebody else. And that's got to be a mindset you get out of your teams to reach the level you're trying to get to and aspire to. So there's my thoughts, guys, on horizontal accountability. I'm going to turn things over to you guys, share your thoughts on that as well. Mr. Gordon, we're going to start with you today.
Great stuff. And Nick said we're just scratching the surface on this, but it's a great topic and a challenging topic, really, for leaders, whether you're coaches or ADs. I think as college basketball starts, and I watch, enough college basketball, probably too much, but I love it. I love watching college basketball, and high school basketball for that matter. But college basketball is on TV, so that's where we're at. You see games going on, you think, man, they could use a timeout, but the best coaches are not calling timeouts because their programs, I believe, are built on this, and they're trying to get those players to be more accountable and to figure it out, as you said. So I find myself, the old coach in me, saying, man, they need a timeout, and they're not doing it, and they know best. They know what they're trying to do with their team, and I think this just brings it to light. The one thing I would say, I think about the young AD, the young coach, but specifically I think about the young AD in their 30s, 40s. I'm not going to say 50s because that's still close enough to me. But the young AD who is working with coaches who are the same age, older as well. How do you do this? Well, I think the one thing is, you've got to lead yourself. You have to make a commitment to getting yourself better every day. Now, you cannot replace experience of a 60-year-old or a 50-year-old. You can't replace the experiences that I had when you're 40. You can't do it. You got 20 more years to go. But you can still work just as hard. You can still prepare yourself. You can still invest in yourself, but you've got to lead yourself. You've got to be committed to being better every day. And I don't care what age you are. If one of your head coaches sees you working hard to be a better leader, they are going to respect that. But you can't just be reactive. You have to be proactive and intentional in getting yourself better. So no matter what age you are, and don't quit when you're 60, there's still every day to get better. And so just, I think that's the biggest thing that struck me is if you're going to do something like this and you're going to be vertical in your leadership and in how you do things, you got to commit to being better yourself too, and do that every day. And people will respect that no matter what age you are.
Great stuff. As always, Todd, appreciate that. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, Todd, thanks for adding that in. That gave me a whole second train of thought. But Aaron, awesome topic. I think, like you said, the start just applies to even your everyday life. Obviously, we have a heart for educational athletics, and that's what we're talking about. But it applies to everything, even in your family. You know, the most important team in your life. This is very valuable for. In particular, the thing that I probably like the most is in these horizontal leadership type teams, this idea of role players kind of goes away, or this idea that I have to have a certain role. I suppose everybody has a role, but when kids get it in their mind, I have to be this one, and that just kind of falls off in those. And I've seen it one or two times in my years of where parents want a role for a kid, and even the kid knows where their role is at. I just think that speaks volumes to that coach's style, because they truly have gotten through to that kid. If at night he's going home and hearing this, and this, then he goes and says, no, this is who I am. I think that's pretty powerful stuff. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but there are situations, Aaron, we talked about it just a hair, of when vertical integration is needed. And in my opinion, that's maybe when you're coaching younger kids as a coach, and you're having to teach them how to lead horizontally. And some of that is just letting them practice and watch it, or asking them what they need. But as an AD, I think that it's when you bring in a really young coach, they need to get up to speed with how to take true ownership over, true accountability over. So there are some situations where I see verticals needed. And then the last thing I'm going to say, and Todd Gordon, you kind of brought this one up. How, in my opinion, as an AD, how do you get through to those coaches, those young coaches, and lead this way? And I think it's all in how you communicate. There's two ways. And I think the guys that think vertically, they communicate like, you will do this no matter what. And I've said those things a few times, but oftentimes I've rephrased it to, hey, what do we want here? And it's just a simple rephrasing that now all of a sudden opens a dialogue. So I think the big piece there, how to do it, I think a lot of it comes through in communication. So great stuff again, Aaron. Thanks for sharing.
I think you guys have both hit on something too here that I think as a leader, you've got to come to grips with as you try to, because I'd agree. I think you as a younger AD or younger coach, or if you're working with a younger team, it takes time to build this. But as your team, your system shifts to being more, horizontal accountability, and as an AD, your head coaches start to be the ones who are defining your culture and perpetuating culture, and you're now just working here and there to keep it moving forward, but you're in the background doing it rather than the foreground doing it. You got to be able to check your ego at the door. You have to be able to be okay with the idea that it's, as a head coach, they're going to talk about what a great player-led program it is, and they're going to give all the shouts and accolades to the players and how well they're leading the team. That coach just sits back and does nothing. That's going to be the easiest coaching job in the world. Just let the players do it because they're so fantastic. Check your ego at the door on that, because if you're a coach who's, no, wait a minute, I want everybody to tell me how good I am, it'll get in the way of developing this type of a system. So, all right, let's go to Mark.
Yeah, I got a few thoughts. This is an awesome topic. I love the word accountability. I'm going to touch on that. I think one thing that can happen with vertical top-down management styles is that vertical accountability can lead to resentment. And, you know, you're the boss and you're commanding things all the time. And pretty soon the employees, the kids on the team, they kind of start to resent that. They don't have a piece of the action, a piece of the pie. And so when you go horizontally, you empower your athletes when you go horizontally and you give them that power. And like you just said, check your ego at the door. Let them have the power. You're still in charge, but let them be empowered and do their thing. And it's been talked about already, but let them figure it out. Not calling timeouts. Wow, that's crucial. And I know, just personal story, when I was coaching girls basketball, I rarely called a timeout, and I'd have new coaches with me. Oh, you need a timeout. And I go, nah, they need to figure it out. It's coaching girls, and they like to do whatever you tell them to do. But in order to get them to do things on their own and figure it out on their own, you have to let them do that in the middle of the game. And there was one mother who would always say to me, you know, you can't take those timeouts into retirement, the ones you didn't use. And I actually ran into her about a month ago, and she goes, what are you doing with all those timeouts? And I laughed and I said, they'll come in handy someday. And, you know, we just had a good enough relationship. She could jab me with that and I'd take it. But the other part of it is, and I told her this, is one of the reasons I didn't have to use timeouts is your daughter was such a good leader on the floor. I just let her do it. And that was true. Last thing I want to mention is the energy. I think we've all heard, you know, with the vertical accountability, you hear one voice in the gym. And with the horizontal, you hear a lot of voices. And we've all heard the wording that a quiet gym is a losing gym, a noisy gym is a winning gym. And I think you can say a noisy gym is a horizontal gym.
That is good stuff right there. Love that, Mark. Love it. All right, Mr. Jarvis.
Yeah,
Cleanup pattern.
now you picked the wrong person to do cleanup, but this completely reminds me of a coach that I had, Aaron. He was very vertical, top down, and we had a rough season, and he really went this route where, you know, he had ownership going to the kids. He had, you know, leadership meetings. He met with the kids. He made them feel like they had some decision making with the program. They had that shared responsibility that you've all talked about. And I think that really cultivated some trust and transparency. And then from that just led to the collaboration and how important that journey is. And Todd, you nailed it with the intentionality is so important. And this is a coach that I admired and did great things and was very successful. But I think going this route made a huge difference. Again, and Aaron, you talked about it earlier with the coach that you had that really did well with this. He started enjoying coaching when he approached leadership this way, where they really gave that, and it was a student-led team, and how much that changed. And Mark and Brian touched on those accountability pieces on the floor or on the field, took care of themselves because the kids were, as Mark said, empowered to make those decisions on the floor, on the court, to hold their teammates accountable. And wow. And then you that all comes together, and all that ownership, that shared responsibility, that trust, that transparency, and then that collaboration, that all leads to a family atmosphere. And we all know that at the end of the day, you know, family loves one another, even though there's trials and tribulations and there's fighting. At the end of the day, we love one another. And that all comes from the coach just letting go a little bit. And for me, that was probably one of the hardest things I ever learned as a coach, was I had to let go a little bit. I'm still not good at it, but I'm better. But that ability to trust others is always tough for me. So for those coaches out there that have that issue, I'm telling you, just trust this process. It really does make a huge difference in your team. So Aaron, thanks for sharing. This was an amazing topic.
Well, hey, thanks, guys. And again, just scratching the surface on this. If it's something you want to have a further conversation with any of us on, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're available at any time to have conversations about this or any other program development leadership topics. That's what we're here for as Bound directors, and that's what we're about. So thanks for joining us on this topic today. Probably went a little longer today, but thanks for sticking with us on that, because it's a great topic and great stuff from my colleagues here. Thanks to everybody out there. Have a great day, and let's be better today.